let's talk about the planning process. Okay, this is your child's IEP and your child's transition plan. Who is the first person you're going to talk to about transition planning? Your kid, hooray, okay. The kid, and I don't care how high or how low functioning the child is, you know when your child has preferences. You know what your child likes and what they don't like. You know, even if they're low functioning, are they really very good on the computer? And maybe that's the way you should go. Also, you should talk to your children, because this is a very difficult meeting. How many of you have gone to IEP meetings and you walk in the room and there's 10 people around you, and what happens? I don't know about you, but sometimes I'm very intimidated. Okay, who's there? What I know, when you go to IEP meetings, you're intimidated. Well, when your kid comes to an IEP meeting at 18, they too may be intimidated. And if that's true, you need to talk about them, about what you're going to say, what you're going to do. Get them prepared for the meeting. Traditionally, I did not allow my clients to go with me to IEP meetings. I felt that they shouldn't be in the room when there were negotiations going on about what was appropriate for a child. This is an exception. This transition planning is what the child wants, not what the parents want, not what the school wants, but what the child wants and they're capable of doing. And that's for the team to decide if they can do that. The next thing you want to do to get prepared is you need to have assessments, okay? Now, there are all kinds of assessments. One that should be done yearly is more or less like present levels. It's a questionnaire asking how your child is doing, what he's interested in, what's his good points, what's his bad points. That's done every year. That means it starts at the age when the child's going to turn 16 during the IEP. And then you do it every single year after that until the child graduates. You redo the level 1 assessments. Are you the same people that you were 3 years ago? No, neither are the kids. And so you have to do the assessment every year. Okay. Level 2 assessments. Those are more like comparing the child, which we usually don't do in an IEP, but in this case we do. And that is comparing the child to his peer. Where is he reading level? Where is he academically? Is he going to college? What type of instruction do they need, and what level are they at? And a level, what we call level 3 assessment, is really a hands-on assessment. Okay? That's where they might go to a vocational center and try out different machines, try out different jobs, meet with different people. That's a level 3 assessment. It's more of a hands-on assessment that the teachers or the people at the agency will be there to observe and make notes and then come back to the IEP meeting, which is very important.
So for the assessments, they should be done before your yearly meet.
You're going to do a yearly questionnaire, and then you're going to decide, do you want your child to take like an SAT? Do you want your child to take the achievement test to be one of the measures for his assessment? Or do you want him to go to a vocational center and do a vocational evaluation? And what I would say to you is that if I were the parent, by the time my child was in 10th grade, I would want that finished. And if need be, it has to be repeated because there are changes, then you can repeat it. But you have to have a baseline, and one of the most critical things here for transition is start early. Don't wait. There are literally hundreds and hundreds of kids waiting to get into different positions in different places. And traditionally, as I said, we would come in April, and the child was leaving the school in June. And we would say, well, we would like to connect them with Department of MRDD. We would like to connect them with this agency or BVR. We want to see about a vocational scholarship. Well, what happens in April of that year? Everything's full. Everything is full. You must start early. A lot of people don't agree with that. I saw Rena shaking her hand. Louder? Oh, okay. But I think it's critical, or you're going to just get placed out because there's not enough people to go around, unfortunately. You must start at 16. I would want to have at least baselines all done by the time they're in 10th grade. So that I can, and there are things that you should be doing as they go along from grade to grade, which also will help them with transitioning. In other words, if they need help socially, they don't get along with people, you don't wait till transition, you start when they need it, so that they should flow together. Does that make sense to everybody? Yes, I'm sorry. The question was, would I recommend any certain assessments? And I would say to you, no. First of all, assessments is not my area of expertise. But secondly, each child is different. And what your child may need, that child may not need. And that's what the word individualized means. Individualized means that your child is one individual that is entitled to their education. And based upon their needs, their preferences, their strengths, and not Johnny's strengths and needs down here across the street. Oh, there's a level 1 is like a questionnaire that you do, everybody does. And then I call it level 2, is when they take tests that compare them to their peers. And that's usually for kids that are SLD, that are thinking of going on to college and seeing whether or not they're capable of functioning. And then what I call level 3 is for hands-on assessment. The other area that you need to get started before you go to the IEP meeting is self-advocacy. These kids are not going to be with you standing next to them all the time. They have to learn to advocate for themselves. And you don't do that in just one day. Adults with disabilities have difficulty advocating for themselves. Some feel uncomfortable telling people about things. Some people think that it's not their business for somebody to know about what's personal about them. So this is something you have to work on consistently. First of all, do they know that they have a disability? Okay, that's question 1. Do they know what their disability is? Can they tell somebody what their disability is? Because self-advocacy is very important. Do they know the accommodations they're entitled to when they take a test? Do they, I think we have a list of questions here in our outline. Do they know what special education is? These are all important things. Do they know what an IEP is? And most critically, do they know what a Section 504 rehabilitation plan is? How many people here know what a Section 504 rehabilitation plan is? Good. Okay, what's going to happen is when your child does go on and graduate after 21, or if they go to college with a disability, there will not be an IEP there for them. The only people obligated to provide IEPs are school districts and state agencies. Okay, you will be covered under Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act, which means that you are entitled to accommodations, some special ed, some tutoring, and they need to know that. They need to know how they can get specific services. This is if your child's going on to college, but they can't wait until they get to college or before if they go out to have a job at 21. Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act will give them accommodations and special services. You have to teach the kids about this because they don't know about it. Not a lot of people don't know about it unless they use it. If you have a child that's limited verbally, there are ways of knowing what your child wants. There are pictures, there's augmentative devices. Sometimes your child can just tell you by a shake of the head that that's something that they're interested in. I don't want you to think that this is only for kids that are verbal. It is not. All children, I keep saying children, but all young adults and adults have to have some sort of communication system. And if your child is getting ready to go out into the employment world and doesn't have some sort of communication system, whether it be pictures, augmentative device, sign language, or I had a cousin that was extremely disabled. He knew certain signs to tell us if somebody was hurting him. He knew certain signs to tell us if he needed to use the men's room. And he never spoke a word. You have to know how your child is going to communicate. I can't stress that enough. All right, we've talked about IDEA generally. We've talked about the transition laws, and we specifically looked at the Code of Federal Regulations, which really gives you the heart of what transition training is all about. And we talked about getting ready and getting started for the meeting. And the most important thing that we talked about was involving your child, self-advocacy, and knowing what your child wants to do, and helping to prepare them for the IEP meeting.